Hey everybody, welcome back. And today we're talking Harambe. If you don't know me, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Eric Crown, the director of the Harambe documentary, one of many people on a very large team that has made this project possible. And we're very excited because we're going to be releasing this year World Gorilla Day. We've been working on the movie for 2 years. We're very excited. We're going to bring the full story of Harambe, but also the potentials for the future and some of the problems with the past that we need to confront and challenge in order to help really save gorillas, and especially Western lowland gorillas, which are now critically endangered. So today we have a very exciting guest. I don't want to wait too long to bring him on. He is the man, and everybody already knows the name Harambe, but the reason you know the name Harambe is because our guest, Dan von Coppenolle, gave him that name. Dan, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for inviting me.
Hey man, so to start with, I'd love to know the origin of how did you come up with the name Harambe?
Well, it's kind of a funny story. Back in '99, I was working as a special ed counselor, and every morning I get up and go exercise on the treadmill. And I like to listen to music, and I listen to reggae music. And there was a particular song called Harambe by Rita Marley. I think it was like live in Central Park or something. But anyways, I was really getting into the song, and then about halfway through the song, she stopped and said what the word Harambe means. It's a Swahili word, like from South Africa or something, that means working together, caring and sharing. Pulling together and working together. So I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. So I thought, wow, yeah, I could probably use that in my job as a counselor because we work on a lot of character development and things like that. So anyways, when I'm done working out, I sit down and I was drinking my green tea or coffee. I don't remember. I flip back and forth. But and I was reading the Brownsville Herald, the morning paper, and right on the headlines, it says, name the baby gorilla. And it just popped in my head, Harambe. And I'm like, that just sounds like a perfect name. African lowland gorilla, a Swahili name. I like the meaning of it. So I impulsively, like 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning before I go to work, I got on the internet and kind of Googled it. And I printed up something with some pretty graphics. And that same day, I was going to be at the zoo for some training for the counselors. And so I took it along and dropped it off. And I pretty much knew that it was perfect. I knew I was going to get picked, and it was just serendipity, I guess. I don't know. It just kind of came about that way. And sure enough, I found out like maybe a week or two later that my name Harambe was picked. So yeah, that's how it came to be.
Beautiful. That is great. That is great. And by the way, that is a great song too, Harambe. If you guys have not heard the Harambe song, Google it, Harambe, Rita Marley. It's really a beautiful, beautiful song. It's really great to know that, from that beautiful music came this inspiration that changed the world. Like this is, you were part of bringing this name that has such a powerful meaning of unity, coming together, working for the community, being selfless, we're working together. And to bring that out into now what is a household name. Do you ever, how do you feel about that sort of being tied to, for sure the most famous gorilla in the world, but also one of the most famous memes, one of the most famous internet kind of characters?
In some ways it's kind of exciting. It's kind of cool, I know my nephews and my kids kind of think it's cool, but in some ways, it's kind of bittersweet because, nobody really knew the name until he got killed. So, and then social media took off and the news, and all of a sudden, everybody knew the name of Harambe, not just me, my family, and my students, So that's the thing, and I see it all the time. I got young people that are sending me messages. Hey, they just mentioned you on whatever. You can go to Wikipedia. I pop up. It's like Yeah, it's kind of bittersweet, you know. And in preparation of this, it was real interesting because I had to kind of go back down memory lane. And I know I handed over some images and stuff that I had. And I kind of was looking around for memorabilia, trying to go back on what it was like back in 1999 and all of that. And I went and played again the Harambe song, you know. And I have like 2 versions on my computer that I can listen to in my playlist. And I listened to it again, and I heard like words and lyrics again for the first time, like another whole meaning to me. And I just kind of like the fact that that's associated with Harambe, the gorilla now, you know. So I don't know what else to say about that, but I don't know. It looks like you froze, Eric. So at the time, I had a buddy that I worked with that was another counselor, and so they were teasing me about winning the name.
Yeah,
the baby.
I mean, that's got to be difficult.
Yeah, no. When I named the baby gorilla, he said, "No, when you retire, that's all you're going to be known for is a guy that named the baby gorilla." And now it kind of turns out that that's true. So thank you, Carlos.
Yeah, and that's another thing too, that the audience is about to learn right now. You gave us some amazing photos, shared some incredible images of Harambe as a baby, and 1 or 2 of them have gone out, and everyone is absolutely in love. Like I just couldn't even imagine the experience, you know, as he was running around and growing up, you know, and the picture with the diaper melts everybody.
Oh yeah,
yeah. So Dan, what now? You know, the whole phenomenon happened afterwards. I know you wrote, I believe you wrote an op-ed for CNN.
Yes.
Why do you think the Harambe phenomenon took off the way it did? What did you think about how that all went down?
I don't know. I find it hard to fathom how it really blew up the way it did. But then I try to look at the time. You know, back in '99 when I named Harambe, I don't even know if I had a cell phone back then, let alone many digital cameras, you know. So there was no social media or anything like that. So, you know, if it came out on the local news, that would be the only way anybody even knew about that little baby gorilla. But when Harambe got shot and died, you know, my nephew texted me like in the middle of the night. They were on social media. They kept up with everything. And they're like, "Hey, Tio Dan, Harambe was killed," you know. And I'm like, "What?" I was totally in shock. And then, you know, looking at the news reports and just seeing how it blew up like it did, I felt like things were already kind of blown up in society where, you know, people are very tribal and they take one side or the other, and they don't really have an open mind or an open heart. They just kind of go with their allegiance. And so when they see a problem, like, you know, the death of a gorilla in captivity, there's all this outrage, you know, against the parents, against the zoo, you know, it just was back and forth. And, you know, it was a political year too, 2016 elections, and our nation was already kind of divided. So Harambe kind of took some of the attention off of that, I think, on the media. And but that's what prompted me to write the op-ed, because I realized how divided we are. And if you really look at the name Harambe, you know, working together, pulling together, caring and sharing, helping one another, you know, and that was the whole message to my students over all these years, whether I was a teacher or a counselor. I would harp on that, through teamwork and cooperation, you can get things done a lot quicker, and you have more fun at doing it, whether you're cooperating with your parents doing your chores, or you're doing your civic duty by going out and voting. It's all the same, that we all have these responsibilities. But when Harambe happened, the fingers came out and pointing, and that kind of like, I just felt like I had to speak out. And all the news media, I'm telling you, I went back and looked through my Facebook Messenger. Scotland, Germany, Japan, all these England ones, they were trying to get an interview with me and all of that. And I was like, no, I just was freaked out, and this nice guy up from CNN kind of said, well, why don't you write an op-ed and then we'll do an interview, and really, put it to words first, So, and then when I looked at the name Harambe, it just made sense, And so when Harambe was killed, I had so many things going through my mind, and I even had some disagreements with my nephews, younger people, older people. Everybody seemed to see things from a different angle, and I realized how much of what we experience in life is perceptual and based on experience, and how we harden these shells. I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan, or I'm an American, and it's hard to it's hard just to be open, and kind of work together. And I do think, hopefully your movie can bring that message together, because the guerrillas are in turmoil right now, and all the bickering and finger pointing and blaming the different sides, when I think it's a cause that everybody could rally behind, like for Harambe. I don't see anybody other than maybe poachers that want to see gorillas dead. So I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's actually that, and that is the thing, is that they really need us. They are critically endangered. We're losing them year by year, and it's interesting because I wanted to ask you about, for people that aren't aware, Harambe was born in Texas, although he unfortunately had his ending in Ohio, because a lot of times gorillas will be moved around and they're sent around. But one of the big problems is they're never sent back out into nature. So as we're losing them in the wild, we're still keeping them here. And we're going to get into the movie. We really get into some of the different aspects about breeding and how that works. Was the zoo where Harambe was born, the Gladys Porter Zoo, was that a breeding zoo?
Well, apparently it was. I do know that is a specialty. The Gladys Porter Zoo is like the most beautiful zoo I've ever been to. It's a small zoo. It's there's no bars. It's kind of a really good environment, but they do have a lot of baby animals born there, and so they frequently have contests, to name the baby animals. Now it's more like an auction. The highest bidder gets to name the baby animal. With me, I didn't win a prize or anything like that. It just, so I think they learned a lesson with the Harambe name. So, but yeah, I didn't know. I mean, I just figured Harambe was going to grow up there, and me and my family and students, he was always there. Every year we'd go to the zoo on field trips, or relatives would come into town. Let's go to the zoo. And everybody wanted to see Harambe, and he knew his name. We'd call out his name and he would respond. And I just had no inkling that someday he would not be there anymore. And so for a long time that really bothered me. And I really didn't know why he was sent away until I read an article about it. And I actually even talked with the curator at the zoo that runs things. And he pretty much said that he had already reached his maximum potential for breeding or something like that. And, I'm like, I just couldn't imagine baby Harambe in diapers, sold out for stud service. So, but I don't know if that's, just what they do. The animals come and go to the zoo. And so it was sad to see them go. I know my brother-in-law, every year they have like this thing called Zoofari, a fundraiser. And I know it's very expensive. It's very expensive to raise these animals, even in captivity. And so they have a fundraiser every year, wine and cheese kind of soiree kind of thing. I've never been to it, but my brother-in-law went, and they had a bidding war. Harambe apparently made a finger painting. And so my brother-in-law was the highest bidder. He spent a fortune, on that to get that painting. And I was at a reggae concert, and he's texted me, "Look, the bid's all the way up to here," but he did get it. And sadly, somebody broke into his office and stole it, or I don't know where it is to this day. But anyways, shortly after that, that's when Harambe was moved. So, they raised a lot of money in that at the zoo. Yeah, I know it takes money to feed gorillas and things like that, but in some ways, I think the zoos maybe exploit, especially the animals that have a name. It's like saying we got a finger painting from a gorilla, now we got one from Harambe. Whereas now, I see since his death, I see other people. Social media and marketing. You can go onto these online stores, just even Amazon, type in Harambe, type in Mercari or Poshmark, and you can find 1 million Harambe Christmas sweaters, mouse pads, you name it. And somebody's making money off of his name, but it's not going back to Africa. It's not going to help save the 3 rangers that were just murdered over there, that nobody knows about, because we don't play that news here. We play all the pop culture, social media, Harambe rest in peace stuff, but a lot of people are making lots of money off of it. And it's to me, maybe the zoos do it too, but it's both sides. And I don't want to finger point, but I'm like, golly, maybe we can market Harambe's name for a greater good, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Yes. And, that's, and Harambe, when you say it out loud, like I said, it means unity. It's such a positive energy. And it's interesting because it comes from reggae, and the Rastafarians believe in word, sound, and power, right? You say the word, you conceive it, you say it, and it is birthed into the universe as a force. So you have to be very conscious of how you speak, so that you're not throwing out negativity, and you're not throwing out things that are going to bring the world down. So yeah, the Rastas are heavy into it. And so, they already started it as knowing it's a power word. And you've brought that to the rest of us and brought that name into our lives and brought that concept into our lives. How do you think Harambe's spirit and memory can help gorillas where they are now, to try to improve their future?
My hope, since this kind of reemerged, it went through several phases. I named the baby gorilla. There was a lot of excitement about that. And then pretty much everybody forgot about him. And yeah, we would go to the zoo and see him once or twice a year. But, even me, it was, okay, there's a gorilla at the zoo that I named. And then when he got moved, I was bummed out about that. And then when he got killed, this dialogue just went crazy on the internet and on TV, on the news and everything. So, and I've been surprised at how many even celebrities, spoke up about it. Even one of our local residents, Elon Musk, that's building rockets right about 15 minutes from my house. tweeted a Harambe song on Twitter that went viral like crazy. So, and some other people, and maybe you'll get into that, athletes and other things have done little promotion things in the name of Harambe. But a lot of times, to me, it seems like it's a little bit more of self-promotion. So my hope is, because I do like zoos. Unfortunately, pretty much from my understanding, I'm not an expert. And I love going to our local zoo. I went there last year on Harambe's birthday, and I shot some video of some gorillas playing, a mother and a father and a couple little babies. And I mean, it just brought back so many memories, and they look so peaceful and so, well taken care of. And it's always been a big dream of me to go see the gorillas in the wild. And I have looked at some tours and, Rwanda, Uganda, that's just a big dream of mine. I'm not sure my wife is so excited about it, but I would like to do the big tourist travel thing. And I know, because I've seen some bloggers on YouTube that I follow, travel guys that are very influential. And even he went to one of those places to go see the gorillas. And yeah, you got to hike into the jungle with, the rangers there, and you got to track because they follow the families, and I'm just like, that is the coolest thing. And I know it's like about $1,000, but to me, it's worth $10,000, and I'm sitting there thinking, how can you actually help those gorillas there? I mean, the ecotourism or whatever you want to call it is partial example, but I'm trying to think of a way in the name of Harambe and working together, so how we could have the zoos correspond with refuges around the world for all endangered species. And I think it would be the goal of a lot of people, maybe to return the animals to the wild. But for me, I really just enjoy observing them. And yeah, I could save up enough money and hop on a plane and go over there, and you spend $1,000 to spend 1 hour with them. But we do that at the zoo. You spend $10-12 going to the zoo, and you can spend a lot of time with them. But I just wish there was a way, and I do have lots of ideas. I'm really good at having ideas. That's what my wife says. But I'm not good at following through on a lot of them but I do think that there's probably a way where we could have, maybe, especially in an area like where we live, the children every year, they all go to the zoo on a field trip. I mean, you're talking about thousands of kids. We're in a low socioeconomic area. The kids are on free lunch. And the only exposure they're going to get to see these kind of animals from Asia, Africa, is on an educational tour of the zoo and to observe. And I really do know that compassion and understanding comes out of awareness, and awareness comes out of the observation. So I think, some of the other people that over the years that have spent lots of time in the jungle observing gorillas in their natural habitat, seeing them with their families, they developed a lot of compassion for them. At the zoo, I'm not sure we're seeing them in their natural habitat. I know they try to dress it up as nice as possible, but I don't know, some kind of virtual, I mean, they got 3D cameras now, you just strap a Insta360 on the head of a ranger that's there observing the gorillas, and all of a sudden you're immersed. You got gorillas all around you, and you could still pay your $10, $12, $15 to go to the zoo, to an auditorium, to spend some time with the gorillas live. And that some of that
signal's gone down for a second. I don't know if you can see me. I
don't see you, but I can hear you.
But if you can, we are entering a time where we can take people on virtual tours. We can take people on 3D tours. We can take people all around. And, people have a natural curiosity for it. There is a really interesting idea that Sierra Williams, actually, our producer, was talking about. And she was saying, it would be interesting. We've seen this actually as an example that works. It would be interesting if they could, I think we may have lost Dan there for a second. Hey, Dan, if you can hear me, come on back.
Yeah, I can hear you. You keep breaking up, though. I don't know if anybody's seeing me. Hi, if you are. We lost Eric someplace, I think. Or Eric lost me. Well, I don't know if I'm the only one on the screen. I'll show you some memorabilia here till we get Eric back. There's the article when I named baby Harambe before I became a silverback. What else do I got? Over the years as a counselor and a teacher, I got lots of gifts. Anything to do with monkeys. These little boxes. I got thousands of stuffed animals, which I donated to the students when I retired. They would make little cards for me all the time. I used to do a presentation and I would always take this bag into the classroom with all my stuff. So the kids really knew that I liked monkeys and I named Harambe. So when Harambe died and it made it all over social media and the news and everything, students started reaching out for me. So that was one of the best things. I had lost touch with a lot of these students. A lot of them when I was a special ed teacher. Oh, okay, you're back. Hi. I was going down memory lane. I was ad-libbing.
There we go. Okay. There we go. Thank you, though. Well, that's why we want him on the show today. We do. We want to hear about this because, well, so, real quick, I just wanted to say Stephanie had a comment that it was so wrong to put Harambe down. I think Stephanie feels, like many of us do, that maybe there would have been a different potential alternative. It's very difficult to do that. But one thing we do all agree on is that we very much miss him. And, he's, but we're hoping that the movie will tell a new in-depth version of his story. So that's, and that was one thing I was going to say, Dan, we were talking about the zoo before. A lot of people as Sierra had mentioned, is really interesting. We've seen examples where zoos become more like local rescue centers than exhibit places. And so a lot of people go and they can learn about everything that's in their area, and they can take all of that technology they have and all the vet work they have. And I mean, all the, it's so challenging because the model of the zoo is a challenge, I think, but zookeepers love the animals so much, and if we could harness all of that in a different way, and so maybe we're seeing like a transformation of kinds, and I think that Harambe's spirit, memory, and name, as long as we keep that name out there, we keep saying Harambe, and we keep living Harambe, and we keep being Harambe, things will continue to move in that direction. Sierra says Harambe lives on in our hearts and in spirit. And it's true. And again, Dan, I have to say, it's because of you that we all have this word, this name, this concept in our hearts and in our minds now. Yeah.
But still, it's just a word.
Yeah, and it's really
like we were talking about finger pointing or labeling. It's as long as we keep talking about the meaning of the word, that it's more than, Harambe sounds cool just by itself, I know on this article in the Brownsville Herald, when they named the baby gorilla, the very first line says, "I Harambe," which, and it says community comes together to name a baby gorilla, or to name a baby. So I'm like, they took it, we're in the Hispanic area, and they kind of made it a little Spanish sounding, "I Harambe." And then they said the community comes together, which is really the meaning of the word Harambe, coming together and helping one another. So, but I think some of the meaning got lost. So.
Right. It's true. It'd be nice to see everybody unified in something more than finger pointing, right? And it's a perfect time. Just like 2016 was complicated, right now is equally as complicated. And if we needed that spirit of love and unity, we need it more than ever today. And
even our zoos are struggling. COVID, I found out because there's been a few articles in the paper. COVID really hit our local zoo really hard. Basically, nobody was going, and so they lost a lot of revenue. And they couldn't have some of those functions like safari and things like that. So, and it takes a lot of money to feed those elephants. And not elephants, but the bigger all the animals. So, so they're also like strapped now because I see that they have to upgrade the zoo. That they have like certain standards that they're in danger of maybe being closed, or so. They're interested in funds now too, and I think our local zoo, wants to acquire the middle school. There's an empty middle school right across the street to expand its facilities, and I think our zoo is owned by the city of Brownsville. So, so I do see a vision there where I really think like you have that school, you have an indoor facility that you could turn into a virtual reality heaven for animals. And you could go see some over here, and then you can go over there for the virtual experience in air conditioning because it's hot. It's already 93 here. And you can go into the zoo, but a lot of the animals, they're in the shade. You can't see them because it's so hot. So I just think that would be really cool, and they could charge a lot of money, and then maybe some of that could go to conservation back in Africa too. So it's just you got to make sure you have both sides as part of the dialogue, because I think it takes Harambe to kind of come up with these solutions. The word Harambe.
Definitely. It's gonna take everybody working together to think, how can we move forward? And it's interesting. I love the idea of the virtual zoo. It ties really into what Stephanie is saying. Parents need to watch their children. Why would you have to put such an amazing animal down? the zoo is wild animals, and we as parents need to realize that. And that's an interesting concept, Stephanie, because it's a twofold thing. Very often it appears that zoos are treated, and sometimes as babysitters. A lot of people will go, and so in a lot of ways that is the intention of it. But what happened with Harambe was a very unique situation, because the zoo was found to be legally liable for not having a good enough barrier. So that particular one is a very interesting case, because the parents did take a lot of the heat, but the zoo didn't take any of the heat, really. I mean, people were very angry with the parents. And so I think, what Stephanie's saying is really important, and that's exactly it. There are wild animals in there. And so maybe there's a better way moving forward where we won't have to keep these wild animals in captivity, having an unnatural life, doing unnatural things. And still we can find ways to educate us that will help us become, the transformation that can save them in the wild. So, there's definitely no clear-cut steps forward, but I really like a lot of the ideas you're talking about there, Dan, with, bringing in the virtual idea, bringing in, still allowing it to be a community center of sorts, and a place for the community to have some pride. But maybe we can find a way where the Harambe incident, the bad part of it especially, will just never be repeated.
Yeah, because I kept empathizing maybe with the parents a little bit, because I taught special ed kids that were labeled as emotionally disturbed. They had severe behavioral problems, and I know I would be a nervous wreck taking them to the zoo, because I couldn't take my eyes off them for 1 second. And including me, when I was a kid, I was the same way. I would have jumped into a moat, Yeah, and I remember that to be able to observe, to look at the animals, that's what a lot of the behaviorists, whether it's animal psychologists or behavioral specialists, that's kind of job that I had as a counselor. We were told to kind of teach these kids appropriate behavior so that they could fit into society, or especially a classroom of some type, because they couldn't sit still and things like that. So we would have to concentrate a lot on social skills, and we spent a lot of time observing their behavior and pointing it out at them. And I would have a camera on in the classroom all the time, because a lot of times, including myself, I know my face twitches, but I never know it twitches until I see it on a video, that a lot of times we need that feedback. But in order to correct that behavior, they have to know what you have to observe. And that leads to a lot of compassion. So one time I was at a place, and I met some guy that studies wolves in the wild. And he was here on Padre Island studying the coyotes. He was living out there in the bush, like with them, the coyotes, and studying them. And he was talking about pack behavior and survival instincts. And I thought, it sounds so similar to the students that I work with, because a lot of their behaviors that were considered abnormal manifested out of their interaction with society. And some of them maybe were abused or neglected or had other things happen to them through their childhood. But, basically I had to teach them how they could conform to a regular classroom. God, I'm doing the thing a lot, but so I actually, when I was talking to that guy, I thought about it. I was like, you know what? I feel like, maybe I have wild children in my classroom, and I'm trying to tame them. But then you kind of go to the zoo, or you would look at our domesticated pets or our horses, and you look at a wild horse versus a domesticated one, and you can see how we've had to break people away from their natural instincts, And so I think a lot of times at the zoos, we don't see the gorillas as they really are, just like my students were misinterpreted as being bad kids or behavior problems, because all of a sudden they're thrust into a school setting where the teacher expects this, that, and the other thing, and they haven't really ever been taught that. So I just thought there was a lot of parallels to that, that, I would really love to see the gorillas in the wild, not just a documentary on TV. They're all fascinating and I love them, but just to go and observe them, just to see the similarities. Because when you're at the zoo, and I know Jeff experienced that because I heard his interview last week, that you look into a gorilla's eyes and you feel like you have like a personal bond. And especially like when Harambe would know his name and he would turn his head, he would be on the other side of the island there and he would come running over to you. And I'm like, wow. But, I always wondered, would that have happened in the wild? I don't know. I don't think so. It's kind of a learned behavior because we're actually in the zoo and they're wild animals and they're sitting there looking at us, and that's we're the only stimuli they have, So it just it's kind of weird.
Well, that's really interesting. I was going to ask you about that because, we often forget, right, that we are animals and we are with them. And, this idea of this sentient being living in a concrete area. We as humans, we do that to ourselves, but it's a very strange thing. I'm really curious when the kids were there and they were interacting and they were there, what kind of benefit did you see them get from interacting with the animals, or how did you sort of see the interaction with them?
I think it just brought a lot of joy to them. A lot of times they had little clipboards or notepads and we had assignments. So, you had to go and we had to read the little placards there that were by all the animals. It just wasn't a field trip but when you have special ed students, you have to kind of adapt it a little bit. But they definitely had a lot of fun. But, I don't think, and the same for me when I was younger, and even when I was older, even when I named Harambe, I don't really thought I gave it much thought about the difference between, like, say, gorillas or animals in a zoo as opposed to the wild, And but then now I know that there is a difference from being a special ed teacher and a counselor and trying to define acceptable behavior for them to fit in society so they can be functioning adults someday, at least receive a valuable education that will open up their mind and their hearts, and they can go and some of them that reached out to me, they've done incredible things, and I don't know if Harambe had anything to do with that, but there's tons of potential in every sentient being. And if we just treated everybody, every animal, every plant, living, mineral, you name it, with a little bit of mutual respect, because Harambe, like one love, we all depend on each other. The food we eat, our enjoyment. My dog keeps me on schedule. He knows when it's time for me to go do certain things. He lets me know. So I'd be lost without him.
Teamwork.
That's right.
Love that. Stephanie says, I thank you all for caring about this majestic animal. I loved him so. And, we do see a lot of outpouring of emotion for Harambe. And, Dan, I think what you just said says it all. Some love and some compassion can change the world around us, to change the world ahead of us, change the world that we came from. And, and it's great. I can see that as who you are throughout the time. And so it just makes sense that you came up with the name Harambe, and it's one of those things where it just feels like, wow, this was meant to be, and it's really been incredible. Let's see. Okay. Oh, Molly says, why didn't they relocate him? Well, Molly, that's a good question. I think that Harambe, we're not sure if he was going to stay in Ohio or not. In a lot of the breeding programs, they will move the animals around based on genetics. And actually, that is a fascinating aspect of it. It's a very complicated, multifaceted kind of problem and Rubik's Cube that, I think people have been trying to solve in a positive fashion for a while. And it's something that we cover in the movie. So tease the movie a touch. Yeah, we do kind of go into that there. And we're hoping that the movie, the thing is when it comes to Harambe, it's very strong emotions. And, we want the movie to be a catapult to more conversations that lead to solutions. And we have very challenging questions we're asking about very traditional uses of zoos, exhibition, and things. So, we're really hoping that it spurs conversation, gets everybody talking, and brings everybody back together. Just, again, I just have to go back to what you said, Dan. I feel like there's really nothing more to say. Like, it was very beautiful, and I thank you for sharing that with us today. Because that's food for thought. We can all leave this with. And
yeah, I think everybody, all sides involved, wants what's best for all wild animals.
Exactly.
Maybe not so much hunters or poachers, but yeah, even to some extent, yes, they do too. So as long as we have an open mind and open heart, and we talk to everybody, Harambe, one love. It's like, all sentient beings, we have basically the same needs. We want to love, we want to be loved, and we want to know that we matter, and that's it. And every little living being on this planet matters, especially to somebody. If you sit there and you look at, the coffee in my cup, somebody probably in Central America grew it. They harvested it by hand. Somebody tilled the soil. Somebody, a truck driver, had to bring it here. It had to be refrigerated. It had to be in the store. There's a whole industry that came off this little coffee bean, and so we're all interdependent. We don't even know it. The rain that watered those coffee plants could have been, from the water in our backyard, kind of evaporated, went up, and we know that every time it gets to be hurricane season here. So, but it's amazing how humans, we are so interconnected, and it's not just on the internet, but at a vibrational frequency, I guess, if you want to get all foo-foo about it. But so are animals. I swear my dog can read my mind. So there's this energy thing there that's there. It's in the plants. It's in just walking barefoot in the grass. Just being in nature is so helpful. And if we can just kind of harness that for the good, instead of, to me, some of the pop culture essential. There's some things that came out of Harambe's death that I still to this day don't understand. And I even had to Google a couple things yesterday that went viral, and I'm like, I don't understand it. I'm too old, but I don't get it. And I'm sure you're going to cover those memes and stuff, but I didn't even know what a meme was, and I'm like, all those images that I kept seeing, 2016, 2017, 2018, it was like, just went on and on and on and on, and I'm like, that's not the Harambe I know, it's like, so, I mean, like this one here.
There we go. Yeah, tell us the story about this. Or did you tell everybody? Or
Yeah, a baseball player. My mind just went blank.
Is that Trevor Bauer?
Trevor Bauer. Yes, thank you. My nephews are big baseball fans, and he was playing for the Cincinnati Reds, and so they follow him on Twitter or something. So he put out a thing. He would make these custom designed shoes. Look, it's got dirt on it. And so he said, log into my profile or whatever and buy something from my store and be entered into a contest to win these shoes, these Harambe Rest in Peace special edition shoes. So my nephew entered that and said, hey, my Tio Dan's the one that named Harambe. I would like to win those or whatever. So at least he had a good heart to give, to award them to my nephew. So he has the other shoe. So they were just tickled about that. And I even have video of him pitching in the game, wearing the shoes and stuff. But I know he signed contracts for millions of dollars, and I think he plays in Japan now. He's a big social media guy and, marketing and all of that stuff. But I'm like, surely somebody with a name can help funnel some funds to Africa where we can help these gorillas, the people that tend to them, the rangers, the education programs over there, help the neighboring communities. I mean, we're talking about our local zoos don't have enough funds, but then you look over there where the animals are in the wild. And I'm really, I'm not sure they're even any better off over there than they are in zoos. I'm sure that's going to get explored, but I just was really saddened to hear that like 3 rangers were killed not that long ago by the poachers. And I'm like, and I know there's programs over there that are trying to teach young kids from the community, it's all about education to be like rangers, and so that they can realize the importance of having the animals protected, as opposed to, because they're poor, they need money they're selling for bushmeat. And I'm like, it just doesn't make sense, but money, competition for resources, that's what creates a lot of problems and has people, transcending borders. And I think if gorillas could, I don't know if there's any other place they would go that is better than where they are right now. That's their natural habitat. But all over the world, all the animals, including humans, we live on the border. We know we got mass migration here too. It's there's got to be an answer to that. So, and it really comes down to protecting the planet so that it can sustain all of us, so that we're not all fighting with each other for resources, including animals.
Which brings us back to the name Harambe, right? Yeah. Only through unity are we going to find any form of, things are way too at a critical mass right now for things to continue as they were. And I do think that this consciousness changeover is really a Harambe type event that's happening very organically within the society, and hopefully it'll continue pushing further and further. Jody Vernay, I hope I said your name right, Jody. If not, please let me know how to say it. I apologize. Jody has a great comment here. She says, yes, all sentient beings should be loved and respected. We should be concerned not only about wild animals, but those exploited in all ways for man's whims: food, fur, entertainment. Absolutely. If we didn't keep wild animals used for man's entertainment, the tragedy of Harambe would have never happened. And so, I think, Jody, that is a future that everybody would like to see. And it's very well said. Very well said. And there we go. Well said, Jody. And hey, Vicki, thanks for joining us today. And guys, by the way, I don't want to hog all the questions. We're going to have to go in a minute or two. If you have some questions for Dan, please put them in the comments. This is a great opportunity. Dan's very open and has been really an amazing part of the movie, and giving us so much material. But also, Dan, you've been such an integral part of Harambe's story. But it's been a while since you've really come out and shared everything with us. So we really thank you for letting us in, letting us know what it was like, and letting us know about how you were with baby Harambe. And I just it's amazing to me to be able to talk to you about this, and to be able to see that it came from love and it continues that way, and that is what you promote. So, well,
it's so funny because when you were reaching out to me, it's like I had turned off so many people in interviews, and I was like, I did the CNN thing, and then I'm like, that's it, I'm done, because I don't, I was just getting bombarded, and I had to stay off of social media. The weird thing that's behind that is the year before, in 2015, I found this dog in our yard that was emaciated. It was like a pit bull. You could see his ribs. So I had to go to a wedding. So I posted it on Facebook. Please, somebody, can they come? Any rescue, come and take this dog, blah, blah, blah. It was starting to rain. I tried to feed it, give it water. It was in bad shape. So anyways, I went to the wedding. Somebody did come and take the dog to rescue it and all of that. And it was in bad shape. And then while I was at the wedding, the thing blew up on social media because I posted on Facebook. So and all of a sudden I was getting media requests from Brazil, Japan, all these animal rights people, pit bull and parolees. I didn't even know there was a show about that. I forget all the animal things there. So half the people, more than half, are saying I'm an angel, God bless you, and all of that. And some were saying, you slime, you see this poor creature, and the best you can do is post it on the internet. And I'm like, oh my God, you can't win for losing, you know. It doesn't matter what you do. So that's why I kind of backed off. And then the following year, when the Harambe death happened, I was getting so many media requests. And to tell you the truth, some people I had to reach, they were even calling our school district. One was from Oregon, I remember. And I was already retired. And they called me and said, we didn't know whether to give them your number or whatever. And it was some podcast, blogger, gun rights group. You know, and so I looked at their podcast and I said, no, I definitely don't want to, and so I was having to like pick and choose. And I'm like, no, it's like, I don't know what angle all these people are coming from. It's just so weird. And I was so distraught about his death that I'm like, and so that's why I had to do the op-ed, because basically it's in the name, that's basically was my message. It's like all the finger pointing and all this talking heads on the internet, and no, it's in the name. Just go back to the name, look at what it means, And actually I did some research on Harambe too, that it's always, they thought it was a Swahili word, but I saw somewhere where it actually was coined by some Indian workers that were sent to South Africa to work on the railroad or something like that. And it was like a Hindu word or something that was kind of like Harambe, but the African, Swahili speaking people, they kind of changed it to Harambe, and they use it for a rally cry to basically all work together, because it was heavy work, lift the hammer, do this, and all, in song, doing it together. Hey, Harambe, or whatever. And I'm like, wow, that's kind of cool. So it transcends, different continents also.
I see. Cooperation, unity. I love that. No matter the language, no matter the country, no matter the people, it's what everybody wants.
Yeah, in the old days in the United States, when like out in the farm country, they would have these things called barn raisings. And so a farmer was going to put up a barn, and the whole community would come out, and they would make plates and barbecue, and they turned it into a big party, but they would get it done really fast when they all worked together. And I know some of my visits, like to Ecuador, they have something called a minga. And it's the same thing, where they all get together and maybe just clean up the trash at the beach, or to help the turtles when they come ashore, or something like that. And I really like that word, so that philosophy.
I love it. And like I said, luckily you were there at the right moment to help us keep that word immortalized and make it a household word. Unfortunately, in the way that it happened, but the positive that came out of it, we always have to look at the good that comes out of the problems in life. And the good is that the name Harambe, the concept Harambe, will always be on everybody's mind, everybody's tongue, and hopefully everybody's spirit, because we need more Harambe.
Yeah, we don't need so many Christmas sweaters. Harambe Christmas sweaters.
Very true. Yeah, the commercialization of Harambe was a whole other, a whole other world. But yeah, it really, hopefully, like I said, with this movie, we really want to bring a lot of these concepts back in and try to realign everybody, like I said, to get back to the table and discuss and talk, and hopefully find a better solution for all gorillas, the ones in captivity as well as the ones in the wild, and maybe try to hopefully funnel more of them out.
Yeah.
Well, Dan, thank you for being with us today.
Thank
A
you.
beautiful story, very inspirational words, and yeah, it's a real honor to have you on today and get to talk to you.
Okay, thank you. Remember the word Harambe.
There we go. And
Thank you.
that's absolutely right. You know, that it's not, you know, it's the name that we have to remember. Dan talked a lot tonight about unity, love, compassion. You know, these should be the starting points of all of our roads, you know, that we are on together. And if we can bring that back into our equation, we're going to come out with a better answer in the end. And Dan really focuses on that and wants to promote that and wants to remind everybody always unity, compassion, love. And that is how we move forward. That's how we work together. That's what the name means. So, you know, tell all your friends, Harambe, you know, if they don't know, let them know. Let them know, because he's a pop icon, but he's much more than that. And we really got to see that today. Really inspirational to get to hear Dan and to really talk about that message. You know, it's not just a name, it's word, sound, power. And like I said, love and compassion is the only thing we need to move forward. So, and Molly says thank you, and thank you, Molly, for being here tonight. And Jan, hi Jan, thank you for joining us as well. Unity, yes, thank you very much, Dan von Coppenolle and Eric Crown. Well, of course, Jan, it's really it's more Dan, you know, because he did bring that word into all of our worlds. So, and Jody, thank you, Eric, for the event and being a warrior for animals. Well, thank you, Jody. It's an honor, and you know, it's amazing to be part of a gigantic worldwide army fighting for a better future. So we all have our part to play. We all can do it. Remember, we got to stay unified. We have to stay Harambe. Well, thanks everybody for joining in today. And I can't wait to see you next week. We're going to keep bringing people from the movie, talking about Harambe, talking about a lot of the interesting, fascinating, and challenging aspects of what happened to Harambe and what's happening in captivity today. So thanks for joining in. Stay with us, and we'll see you next week.